Good day, students. Once again, my name is Ruth Egunjobi, your tutor for the Introduction to Regional Economics, SADC, RESOD1. I'm your tutor and I'll be taking you through the course outline as well as what you need to do in answering the tutorial letter for 2018. I want to give you the recommended text for this course, A Guide to the Namibian Economy by Robin Sherburne, 2017. It's a very good resource which is going to help you understand the Namibian economy. And once again, the tutorial guide, don't forget to include references in answering your questions, and you can use the book. If you don't get the book, you can also resort to the library, looking at books on macroeconomics to help you with some concepts, and basically more reading of the newspapers and some internet sources as well. This would guide you through the course outline. The course outline, this course, it talks about regional economics. So the first thing we're going to look at is economics, the concept of economics, and the concept of regional economics. Then we're going to look at the sectors of the Namibian economy. We're going to go into the role of the government in the economy. We're going to look at national development planning. That is the NPC, the National Planning Commission. We're going to look at NDPs 1 to 5, as well as the Harambee Prosperity Plan, the HPP. Then we go to development goals. We're going to look at sustainable development goals by the UN, as well as the Vision 2030 in the context of Namibia. Then we look into SADC, that is the South African Development Communities Economies. That is the economies of 15 countries in the region, in the SADC region. This takes us to regional integration. We're going to look at what is regional integration all about. Then we look into international trade agreements, and finally, export processing zones, EPZ. That is the course outline, a brief introduction to the course outline. Let me start with the definitions and the concepts. This is the first, it's a first-year course, and it's the first time you're seeing some of these concepts. So I'd like to just give an overview of the objectives that we need to keep mind of. We need to explain what economics is all about. And once again, it's a social science which basically studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative users. On the one hand, we have so many wants, needs. On the other hand, the resources we have are very scarce. So economics is all about the study of how human beings behave in relation to what we want, what we need, and the resources that are very limited or very scarce. That is what economics is all about. Or you can say it's a social science that is concerned with the description, the analysis of the production, the distribution, the consumption of goods and services. And economics is such a very broad field, but it has been split into two main components, the microeconomics and the macroeconomics. And at this stage, we need to differentiate or distinguish between the two. What is microeconomics? Microeconomics is a study of economics at an individual, a group, or a company or level of a firm level, focusing on the issues that affect the firm or the individual. And macroeconomics, on the other hand, is the study of an economy as a whole, focusing on national output, governmental decisions, on things like poverty, unemployment, inflation, balance of trade deficits, and all that. Those are the two components of economics. So if you're asked to distinguish or to differentiate between the two main branches of economics, we're talking about the difference between micro and macro economics. Another concept, which is the third point here, is the concept of scarcity. Wants, needs, and opportunity costs. Like I said, economics is a study bit of how consumers behave in relation to the scarce commodities and the wants or the needs on the other hand. Scarcity is something that we all talk about. The resources are scarce, the resources are scarce. So scarcity is basically talking about resources that are not enough, such as it cannot meet all the wants or the needs we have, and as such, opportunity cost comes into play. What is opportunity cost? The alternative for gone. Since I don't have so much resources to do everything I want to do, I need to make a choice. I need to make a decision. Do I take one and leave the other? So if I take option A and leave option B, the real cost of option A that I left is option B that I did not take up. So these are the concepts we need to understand at this point. Then we move to the factors of production. Every economy has factors which enable production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. And how important are these factors of production to the well-being of a country is what we need to consider at this point. The concept of scarcity refers to limited availability of a commodity. Opportunity cost refers to the value of what is given up in order to choose something else. Now we move to the basic economic problems every economy faces. We're talking about an economy here. What are the problems every economy faces? Not just the Namibian economy, but every economy. The first one is what to produce. What will the country produce? How will the country produce it? When would that country produce it? And for whom to produce? These are the 4 economic problems which every economy faces. And I would like you to read more about these basic economic problems, because some students say problems are things like unemployment or inflation. No, the case here is every economy. The basic 4 problems are these: what to produce, how to produce it, when to produce, and for whom to produce. Then we're going to move on to economic systems. Economic systems, the first is the command economic system. The second is a free market economic system, or the mixed economy, a combination of the command and the fixed, or the traditional economic system. What is an economic system? It's basically the way the government controls the economy. And in this case, Namibia has a mixed economic system, which is a combination of the free market economy and a little bit of government intervention. Then we go to economic sectors. Economic sectors. Every economy is divided into sectors. And the first sector is the primary sector. What is the primary sector all about? This focuses on the production of raw materials such as fishing, agriculture, and mining. The primary sector basically deals with raw materials, the production of raw material. The secondary sector focuses on manufacturing of the goods from the raw material, such like fruit and vegetable processing, turning wood into furniture, and producing clothes from wool. That is the secondary sector, which is the manufacturing sector. The third economic sector in the economy is a tertiary, and this has to do with services and trade, the services and trade aspect of the economy, otherwise called the service sector. These are the 3 sectors of the economy, and then we move into the concept of regional economics. A region is a location, a geographical location, and the region we're talking about is the the economic region in the southern tip of Africa called the SADC region. But before we go into the economy of SADC, what is the concept of regional economics? Regional economics is the study of the economic behavior of the businesses, the consumers, and the government, and how these behaviors affect the economic development of a region. So we're going to look at the 15 countries in this region and how the economic behavior of the businesses in the region, how the consumers in the region, and the government's decisions, and all these, how they affect the economic development of the region. And the region in question is the SADC region. Okay, now we go to let's start with the Namibian economy. The Namibian economy has a lot of sectors, but the economy rests on 4 pillars. We call it the 4 pillars. And these 4 pillars of the Namibian economy are the tourism sector, the mining sector, the fishing sector, and the agricultural sector. These are the other sectors like banking, telecommunications, and all that. But these are the 4 sectors which contribute mostly to the GDP. The GDP is the gross domestic product, which is the wealth of a country. So, back to the Namibian economy, we need to have you need to know a brief description of the country, the location, the population, and all those demographics, the regions, and as much as you can have in terms of facts and figures. What is interesting is the importance of each sector and how these sectors contribute to the GDP. In other words, what is the importance of the tourism sector and how does the tourism sector contribute to the GDP? What is the importance of the mining sector to the economy and how does the mining sector contribute to the GDP? Also the same for fishing and agriculture. What is the importance of agriculture? What is the importance of the fishing sector? And how do these sectors contribute to the gross domestic product of Namibia? Other sectors, like I talked about, the banking, telecommunications, but let's focus on these 4 pillars of the Namibian economy. The next point on the course outline is the role of the government in the macroeconomy. Macroeconomy, not micro, but the macroeconomy. Now, the role of the government in this context is divided into 3 main branches: the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. And I would like you at this point to know what the executive is all about. What is it comprised of? The legislative arm of government, what is it comprised of? What is the composition and the function of each arm of the government? This is very important. You need to know what is the composition of the judiciary. The judiciary, like the courts, the Supreme Court, the High Court, the lower courts. What is the composition and what is the function? What is the role of the High Court? What is the role of the Supreme Court and all that? And what is important to the economy in this course is the importance and the role of the government in the functioning of the economy. And how important is the government in the functioning of the economy? When we look at things like law and order, the compliance to taxation, for instance, if there is no tax compliance, then the economy wouldn't function as well as it should function. So the government is there to ensure that there's compliance in terms of like taxation and there's compliance in law and order. This is very important, and this is the link between the government and the economy. The government is there to make sure that the economy works. Now we move to the concept of national planning development. National development. This is the ability of a country to improve the social welfare of the people. That is what national development is all about. Social amenities like quality education, potable water, transportation, infrastructure, medical care, and all that. That is national development. Now the question is, what is the importance of national development planning? And it's simple: to enhance the national economic development of the country. So the government makes plans, and this plan is basically to enhance the development of the country. Plans to increase social amenities like education, water, transportation, medical care, infrastructure. That is what national planning for development is all about. And in the context of Namibia, there's the NPC. The NPC is a National Planning Commission, which we need to look at. And the NPC has rolled out 5 plans to date. NDP 1, starting from independence, and now we have NDP 5. So I'd like you to get the document, which is on the internet. NDP 1, NDP 2, NDP 3, NDP 4, NDP 5, and there's also the HPP, the Harambee Prosperity Plan. And try to have a feel of what the government has planned to do towards the Vision 2030. The Vision 2030 is the end point of these plans, and between independent, the first plan, and the Vision 2030, there's a structure on how the development of the country would be. Then I want us to go to, there's something called the Sustainable Development Goals. This is by the UN. The United Nations has come up with Sustainable Development Goals, and these are 17 goals in total. I would like you to also get the document and read these 17 goals, which also is what the UN, the countries in the UN, things like to end poverty, to protect the planet, ensure that all people enjoy peace and prosperity by the year 2030. So I wanted to read the Sustainable Development Goals by the UN, 17 of them, as well as the NDPs, the National Development Plan of Namibia, the plans 1 to 5. And just a few points on the Sustainable Development Goals. Inequality and social welfare is a point done with. Human resource development and institutional capacity building. They look at macroeconomic issues like population, health, development. Now the Namibia's natural resource sector, knowledge, information and technology, and factors of the external environment. Now that is, we've covered the introduction to what economics is all about. We looked at what regional economics is all about. We talked about development planning. Now we move into the SADC, the South African Development Community, SADC, because this course talks about regional integration, introduction into the region of SADC, the economy of SADC. The first point is the concept of regional integration. What is regional integration? The process in which states, in this case, another word for states is countries. The process in which states enter into a regional agreement in order to enhance regional cooperation. Or you can also say that it is the process by which 2 or more nation states agree to cooperate and work closely to achieve peace, stability, and wealth. That is what regional integration is all about. 2 or more nation states come into an agreement, basically to work together to facilitate peace, stability, and wealth for all the member countries. Now in Africa, there are 8 regional blocks, which you can also find in the text. In the western side of Africa, there's the ECOWAS, Economic Community of West African States. There's COMESA, Common Market for Eastern and Southern African States. There's the ECA and lots of them. But the block that's in this course is the SADC, which is the South African Development Community, which consists of 15 countries. Now, what are the benefits or the advantages of regional integration? This is quite important. What is the benefit, or what are the advantages when countries cooperate together to facilitate development? The first one is the strengthening of trade. Trade is strengthened, and we know the importance of trade. Well, peace and security is another advantage. The building of environmental programs at the regional level, especially as most countries share borders that have natural resources such as like the sea and the desert. And also the strengthening of the region's interaction with other regions in the world. SADC has relationship with other trade organizations in the world, and that is very important for development as well. 15 member countries in SADC. We need to know the objectives of SADC as well as achievements of SADC. And I'd like you to read that. What are the objectives of this SADC, of SADC as a body? And what are the achievements that SADC has made? And also, what are the benefits of Namibia being a member of SADC? These are points that you should focus on as you work on your tutorial later. Economic integration. You know, previously we talked about regional integration, whereby states come together to sign agreements to facilitate cooperation between them. But what is economic integration? Economic integration is the process whereby different countries agree to remove trade barriers between them. That is economic integration, the removal of trade barriers. And trade barriers could be tariffs. Tariffs are taxes imposed on imports to a country. They could be quotas, which is a limit to the amount of a product which can be imported. And they could be border restrictions as well. So economic integration is whereby countries come into an agreement, they sign agreements to remove trade barriers between them. What is the advantage of this? It facilitates trade, political cooperation, and employment. Another point we need to look is SACU. SACU is the Southern African Customs Union. SACU, a custom union. What is a custom union? A custom union is a type of trade bloc which is composed of a free trade area with a common external tariff. It is a trade agreement by which a group of countries charge a common set of tariffs to the rest of the world while granting free trade among themselves. So, a custom union is a set of countries. They come together to sign an agreement to take out trade barriers, facilitating free trade between themselves. But to the countries not in the union, they charge a common external tariff. That is a custom union. And what is important here is a free trade area. You need to understand what is a free trade area and what is a common market. Now, SACU, in this case, is made up of 5 states, 5 countries, of which Namibia is one of the countries in SACU. We need to also understand what are the aims and objectives of SACU. What are the aims and objectives of SACU? And this is going to facilitate, you're going to see more of this in your tutorial later as you do your research on the aims and the objectives of SACU. Then we move to international trade agreements because we're looking at the SADC region. And we talked of trade earlier. One of the benefits of regional integration is trade. Now, trade within the region and also trade with, outside the region. Now, international trade agreements. International trade is the exchange of goods, capital, and services across international borders or territories. In other words, it is the exchange of goods and services among nations of the world. Once again, we need to find out what is the importance of international trade to an economy. How important is trade to an economy? You can see that if there is good trade, it improves the GDP. The GDP is the gross domestic product. If there's good trade, it improves exports, and exports brings in money to the economy. Also, it improves employment because trade facilitates employment creation and all that. So, how important it is international trade to an economy, and also the benefits of international trade to the economy. And we're going to look at some international trade agreements. The first one is AGOA. the African Growth and Opportunity Act. Another one is COMESA, which is a common market for Eastern and Southern African states. Another one is the WTO, which is the World Trade Organization. And the last one is the EPA, Economic Partnership Agreement. I would like you to read up on these agreements, which Namibia is a part of. Like I said in the previous point, the importance and benefits of international trade to an economy can never be underestimated. And I would like you to look at the AGOA, COMESA, WTO, and the EPA, and how do they facilitate to the growth of an economy. The last point on the course outline is the Export Processing Zone, the EPZ. What is an EPZ? What is an Export Processing Zone? In Namibia in 1995, the government of Namibia adopted the EPZ Act 9 of 1995 as a legal framework for promoting export-led industrialization in the highly primary sector-driven national economy. So an EPZ is a relatively small, geographically separated area within a country, the purpose of which is to attract export-oriented industries by offering them especially favorable investment and trade conditions as compared with the other parts of the host country. In particular, the EPZ provides for the importation of goods to be used in the export goods. So it's a small location within the country that is given incentives. Basically, they produce goods for exports. And that is what an EPZ is. And in 1995, the government signed the act into law and has given the private sector, and the export-led industrialization of some products. That is an EPZ. And what is the specific purpose of an EPZ? The first one is to attract, to promote, or increase the manufacture of goods, export goods and services. To create and increase employment, industrial employment, because it has to do with production. To create or expand export earnings, because those things produced are for the export market. And when you export, you get money, so that is export earnings. To expand export earnings. To create or expand industrial investment, including foreign direct investment. Investors bring in their money into Namibia. They bring money, they bring technological know-how, and this improves the industrial climate of the country. Also, technology transfer is encouraged, as well as the development and management of labor skills. So we need to look also at the advantages of EPZ to Namibia. An EPZ, there's freedom of location. It could be set up anywhere within the country. It's tax-free. They are not required to pay tax to facilitate the production. Equal treatment of investors. They are all treated equally. And no time-bound incentives are given to an EPZ. Then trade barriers and protectionism. Trade barriers. What is a trade barrier? Trade barriers are things that don't allow trade move freely between two countries. And the other side, trade barrier is on one hand, as in we want to take off the trade barriers, and on the other hand, each country wants to protect its own economy, and this is quite important in regional economics. Every country wants to, trade freely with other countries, as in take out the barriers of tariffs and quotas and border restrictions and all that. On the other hand is the need to protect the economy. So protectionism refers to government actions and policies that restrict or restrain international trade, often done with the intent of protecting local businesses and jobs from foreign competition. Typical types of methods of protectionism are import tariffs, quotas, subsidies, tax cuts, and direct state intervention. These are like two sides of a coin. On the one side, there's a need to remove the trade barriers, facilitate trade. in the region. On the other hand, there's a need to protect the local economy, protect things like jobs, protect things like foreign competition, because if there's too much competition, it stifles the local producers and businesses. So these are the two sides of the coin: trade barriers and protectionism. And this is the tutorial letter guide. We came across words like describe, define, explain, discuss. Describe means say everything you know about that concept. Define, the same thing. Explain, write down your points. Use keywords and explain it. It's not an examination. It's an assignment. So take time to answer your assignments properly. Discuss. You should discuss the points. Write down the points and discuss them one after the other. And that is how you can get maximum points from your assignments on this course. So this is the introduction to regional economics, SADC, and I wish you the best in the course.